Welcome to Comic Watch, your source for media news and reviews. I am John Jack here with Nicholas Osborne and Matt Meyer. We are here to talk about 3 books this week. We're talking about War of the Realms, number 6, Hellboy, the Beasts of Khonshu, or
Vargu.
Khonshu is
Wow.
whatever. And Martian Manhunter, just the whole mini, or half of the mini, I guess.
Yeah, the first half. Or just number 6. Won't surprise you.
But I will allow my other 2 hosts to introduce themselves at this time.
Hello, this is Matt. I'm in Oklahoma. It's hot. Summer decided to finally show up just in time for another Marvel movie to bear down on us. Nick?
Hey everyone, I'm Nicholas Osborne, once again coming from all the way out in Carthage, Texas. It's also hot and humid out here, so another day at it at Comic Watch.
All right. And Cody is incommunicado for some reason at this point. He does have a wife and a kid, so what's his business is his business. What do we have for news this week, fellas?
I guess first, the new pop-up imprint from DC Comics from Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. He's got a bunch of new horror titles coming out that he's going to be writing some of them, and he's got other guest writers and artists coming in for a few other titles, and it looks to be pretty awesome. I think they're coming out this October, and it's starting with a basket full of heads that's written by Joe Hill with art by Leo Max, and it looks to be some actually scary stuff. It's coming out under their Black label, so it's going to be for the 17 and up range, and looking forward to it.
It's so interesting because it's hot on the heels of them saying basically no more imprints.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, these pop-up imprints, Young Animal's the other one, but maybe that's what it's still under the Black label title, so they're doing that, but strange decisions.
Very much so.
I like the Black label format. I wish they would use it on better books.
Right? After that.
They're finding their niche with it. Like, they're going to hit their stride, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can hope. They're kind of all over the place right now. In film news, the Mouse Guard CGI movie has been officially canceled. Although a lot of people are sad because I guess there was some test footage that leaked out. It looked pretty cool. I don't know much about Mouse Guard other than it's supposed to be really awesome. So I guess we all missed out on that one. And then Marvel unveiled what exactly is in its re-release of Avengers Endgame. It's a deleted scene and some kind of tribute at the beginning. And I think that's like really it. So it sounds kind of skippable to me and sort of a bald cash grab in my personal opinion. But, hey, it's still Avengers Endgame. So I'm sure I'll see it 20 more times. But there wasn't a heck of a lot else for news this week, I don't think. Everyone's kind of laying low with SDCC in just a few weeks. So, guys, are we about ready to get into some books?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
And the fellows have kindly agreed to lead with War of the Realms because I have a horrendous headache and I'm going to duck out after War of the Realms. So we will start with War of the Realms. It's War of the Realms number 6, which is written by Jason Aaron with art by Russell Dodderman, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by BC's Joe Sabino. That is off the top of my head.
Nice.
Marvel Comics, obviously. So we lead off with the aftermath from last issue, which is the Fantastic Four, or not the aftermath, but basically what was implied at the end of last issue, which is the Fantastic Four going to the far future to retrieve All-Father Thor from millions of years in the future, and then going back in time and retrieving young Thor, King of the Vikings, from AD 700 or so. And they bring the Thors to the sun, or I think it was the sun, to meet with current Odinson Thor. Excuse me. I had some really terrible gas station chicken on the way home, like impressively bad. The sinews were like crackers. I've never experienced anything quite like it. I only ate 3 pieces of it, though. So the Thors gather and are joined by a 4th Thor, which is Jane Foster Thor, wielding the Ultimate Universe Mjolnir that was cast off when the War Thor faced off against Mangog in the ruins of, I want to say, Old Asgard. It was, I want to say, Thor 702 or so. It was about a year and a half ago. But the War Thor, when he was defeated by Mangog, cast his hammer away, hugely damaged, and Jane was able to find it and tap into it to become the goddess of thunder once again. And the reason all of these Thors have been gathered. Get out of here. Ready, Fudgy. It's the cat. I'm at home for once. Yeah. Yogurt cup. The reason all these Thors have been gathered is because Malekith the Accursed has Odin and Freya tied up at Stonehenge and surrounded by an enchantment that only Thor can cross. So, you know, he pulls a little sneaky on him and gets more Thors. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't receive a Frog Thor, a Frog Thor cameo, or even potentially Volstagg coming back as War Thor and Jane Foster assuming her Valkyrie mantle, or she's going to be Valkyrie in an upcoming series. Mantle. I said mental. Sorry, headache, as I said. But she... So I was hoping for something like that, but I was very happy with what we got. So they come upon Malekith at Stonehenge and fight Malekith. And it's a pretty amazing fight. Malekith has been powered up by the Venom symbiote, which is mistakenly called the Null symbiote at one point, which bothered me, actually. The Null symbiote is dead. Allegedly, dead / being slowly resurrected by Carnage, because Venom number 6, Venom shoved him into a steam oven and let him burn to death. But so him calling him Null symbiote was unfortunate, especially since Null is not a symbiote. Null's symbiote was All Black the Necrosword, which is currently not on Earth. I don't know where it is, actually, off the top of my head, during the current timeline.
Well, there's only 7 years worth of Jason Aaron Thor that you need to come back through to figure that out. Come on.
Well, during the current timeline, I want to say, I don't think it was active during the current timeline at any point on Earth, because all of the current timeline stuff took place in the realm of the gods and on other planets. The past stuff, he initially found Gore in a cave during the Viking era with the Necrosword, and then in the first issue of the God Butcher, he finds some gods that he's killed, and then they go to the what's the God City called? They just went there and no.
Are you talking about where the chronicler of all the gods' deeds?
Yeah,
I know where you're talking about. I don't know what it's called. It's got some really on the nose name like Godtown or something like that.
Destroyed in God Butcher.
Right? So what'd you think of it, man? You've been the big War of the Realms booster this whole time, the big cheerleader.
Absolutely loved it.
Oh,
hang on. Actually, I wrote up for Cody, who isn't a big Thor fan. I wrote a big list of reasons it's exciting, and I will now read that list.
I do.
Thor gets his hammer back, which is amazing. He conjures his hammer out of the. He uses the cosmic storm or the god storm, which is what was contained within Mjolnir, to harness the energy of the sun in order to forge a new Mjolnir out of his own magic. He is no longer just the god of thunder. He is, in fact, the god of hammers. Odin made him the All-Father, which is interesting since Jane was made into the All-Mother, meaning,
Maybe they'll have all babies from all sex.
Jane seemed to merge with Ultimate Thor's hammer as it was destroyed, which I'm sure she merged with an indestructible fragment of a dead universe. So I'm certain that's going to be really, really interesting. Having all the Thors is a good full circle moment for the series. Especially they were featured really heavily in the first two arcs, God Butcher and God Bomb. And so it's a good full circle moment for the series, and it also helps to really, really hammer home how much Thor has evolved in the last 7 years.
You said hammer.
Say again?
You said hammer.
Cody! But,
Cody's here.
How much Thor as a character has grown in the last 7 years. And to top it all off, at the end of the issue, we're shown he is in fact worthy again, which he hasn't been worthy since Original Sin, when Nick Fury whispered to him that Gore was right, the God Butcher. So it shows some character growth on his part, and Thor has in fact grown as a character under Aaron. Malekith using a symbiote as a necrosword is another callback to God Butcher. Obviously, it was revealed in Venom #4 that All Black the Necrosword was in fact a fragment knocked off of Null by Thor. I will say that it was a little bit of nonsense when they revealed that, because Thor in God of Thunder was shown to have interacted with Gore, who had All Black the Necrosword, before he was worthy. But that's on Donny Cates, not Jason Aaron. The Cask of Ancient Winners is the weapon that Malekith used in his first arc, starting in Thor number 344 during Walt Simonson's run. It was it's a cask that, when opened, can spread irrevocably, basically freezing an entire planet. It did briefly get opened in that arc, and it actually makes a lot of sense, because to my knowledge prior to this, I didn't know that frost giants had enough magic to freeze an entire continent, and it makes sense if they were using that as to how they would be able to do so. The Wild Hunt turning on Malekith was cool. It was a little bit by the books in terms of storytelling. Like, it wasn't really that surprising, and it definitely felt a bit like, the hyenas turning on Scar at the end of Lion King, to name one.
Exactly what I thought of.
But the Wild Hunt are their magic hounds that sorry, one second. They're magical hounds that hunt by emotions and fear and stuff like that. So Malekith being their master, feeling fear for the first time that they've ever seen, could potentially canonically cause them to turn on him. So that's really interesting, because even at his worst, Malekith, throughout all the years, has pretty much always more or less laughed in the face of danger, spit into the face of the man who's beating him into the ground, and he's always managed to be a slippery little bitch and get away. So this is interesting that this is the first time that Malekith has been injured enough to be apprehended, and which will be dealt with in the Omega issue. Although Malekith was very clearly dead. The thing is, with the Asgardians, dead isn't exactly dead. Malekith was in fact imprisoned in Hell. at the beginning of Jason Aaron's Thor run. But in the realm of the ice spiders, which are now Spider-Man's best friends, I liked the all the shots of various heroes finally overcoming. Laufey finally got taken down. Loki wasn't dead, which I'm sure surprised literally no one. No one thought he was dead. No one thought he was ever going to be dead. I called it the second it happened. We all know he's not dead. But I mean, it was pretty quickly agreed on when they showed him alive in Laufey's gullet in Thor number 11, 10, whichever one the first War of the Realms Thor issue was. It came out the week after War of the Realms number 1. Let's see. Did I have anything else to say about War of the Realms?
Well, let me ask you: was this event worth the price of admission? Just to a casual fan, not a major Thor fan, not a major Jason Aaron fan, just somebody who wants to read a good comic.
So I will say, initially, it seemed like it was kind of trying to explain what was happening to people as it happened. And by the 6th issue, it's not explaining a damn thing, which, granted, if you're a longtime Thor fan like me, is awesome. I love that there's not a single page that feels needlessly wasted to exposition. But at the same time, it's not super new reader friendly. There is a really handy reading list I saw today that has colored. They have bold issues, and those are the issues that you actually need to read to follow the event. And then the rest of the issues are optional. I'd say like 60% of the event or more is completely and totally just, if you feel like this looks like a book you might like, pick it up, and it'll add a little flavor to the event, but it doesn't actually, you're not required to read it, which, if you're like me and you're going to buy every single issue, is kind of unfortunate. But at the same time, I now own 4 issues of Squirrel Girl I'm never going to read again. But all in all, I think the event was worth it. I don't think every issue was gold. Journey into Mystery, 3 out of 5 issues were trash. Giant Man, 2 out of 3 issues were not great. I like the Uncanny X-Men enough. I love the War of the Realms Punisher series. The last issue was really fun. But, all in all, and you're welcome. I've reviewed more or less every. There have been a couple that have slipped through the cracks, or I've been tired and haven't felt like doing them. But I've reviewed at this point 95% of this event in written reviews, and you can track those all down on Comic Watch if you feel so inclined. I did helpfully tag them all War of the Realms. So if you go to our search function and search War of the Realms, you can find every one of my reviews in order from start to finish of the event. And that is the reason I tagged them that way. So all in all, I'm sure if you go from start to finish, you can see my enthusiasm for the event start to not necessarily go way down, but start to lower around issue 4 and then shoot back up in issue 5. And I haven't written the review for issue 6 yet, but it's gonna be a positive review. No spoilers. But to my point, what this issue was for a Thor fan like me, like a big Thor fan, is just fan service. It's, like there's that Transformers Ghostbusters issue that's out this week. If I were a Transformers or Ghostbusters fan, I would freak out. I like those things fine, but I'm not gonna freak out. But this is my, what have you, the Descendants playing one last show that Cody gets to go to. Some shit, whatever. But what I'm trying to say is, this is my big event.
Somebody wrote this with you in mind.
Yeah. No, there have been like 3 or 4 times where I've accused Jason Aaron of reading my fake dream journal that I made up. And from his writing and various other things I've seen him talking, I'm pretty sure that if I hung out with Jason Aaron, we'd get along really well. So we have similar. We both like alcohol and stuff. Come hang out with me, Jason Aaron. I live in Seattle, but I won't go. What did you think about the issue, Matt?
So I will say that this was the Thor event that Fear itself was supposed to be. Oh, what, 8 years ago? However many years? 8? God, has it been that long? It was hugely Thor-centric, and it's supposed to be, and it was big and dumb and fun, and sometimes more dumb than fun, and full of some cool fan service moments, and lots of symmetry in the 6th issue that calls back to the beginning of Jason Aaron's run. That thing that you mentioned about the Null symbiote, I got to that page and I was like, what the fuck did I miss over in Venom? And then I'm glad that it was a mistake of some sort. Yeah, okay. I'm not crazy. The Malekith's demise via his wild hunt was definitely very similar to the end of The Lion King. That's fine. I thought it was actually cool. You know, Malekith has been so arrogant and just so evil this whole time, and at the end he's clearly afraid and he can't admit it. And the things that track Fear, they damn well aren't being fooled by his bravado. And that was a good ending. And he's literally torn limb from limb. Of course, death for the Norse gods is never final. So I'm sure we'll see Malekith again.
He's an elf, but
oh yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, okay. Let me rephrase that. Thor canonical characters / any Marvel character ever who dies, death is not final. I enjoyed this.
In the Thor pantheon, they go to hell, and then their hell is problem, and then every so often hell will cut a deal and let them loose or something like happened in Uncanny War of the Realms X-Men.
Right. It did have lots of little flourishes in the dialogue that, since Cody planted the seed about Jason Aaron's dialogue, I can't not notice them now. But things like Freya saying, "Oh, hell, come on. No.
He's doing that since the start, though.
It's minor. It is. It's just one of those things. It rubs me the wrong way now. Thanks, Cody. No worries. I love you. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the fact that the damn thing came out on time. It was 6 issues in 3 months, and it always hit its target ship date. We don't get that often enough anymore, but I mean, between this and some of the weekly release schedules that DC has had, on some of their more recent events, post Metal, like, I really hope that this quick release model is what event series start going to, just because it's going to combat fan fatigue, or event fatigue. So, I very much enjoyed it. You know, we still technically have 2 arcs to go to round out Jason Aaron's Thor run. We've got the King Thor miniseries that starts in September, and then his last arc in Thor proper. So he's not quite done with the character yet.
And the Loki miniseries also.
Well, but that's not that's not Jason Aaron specifically writing those.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just talking strictly just Jason Aaron. But it was a lot of fun. I do not regret reading this at all. So, Nick, what do you think?
I guess I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, you pretty much covered it. It's a loud, dumb, fun event that fans of Thor are gonna love. If you can follow John's explanation on what got us here, you're probably gonna love it. He has a lot of Easter eggs and stuff like that is straight fan service, and I may not have picked up on all of it, so it just went by the wayside, and I just didn't get it. But I still had fun with the event. as we come into this final issue, Thor hanging himself from the tree and getting the idea or the answers that he needs more Thors was, not predictable at least, but it was fun. And like who he brings to the team was cool. And it's just, I summarize it as badass. And it accomplished what I thought it would. And to Matt's point, it did come out on time, which is something that is rare. And it was everything I wanted it to be. I wasn't looking for some complex story or insightful story out of it. It was a lot of epic action, and most of the tie-ins were not impactful really to what was going on. They weren't necessary for reading, as these tie-ins tend to be. I will say the Deadpool one recently was pretty fun. He goes on the whole thing of being a troll hunter, and they set up this big fight, and then he just leaves. Like, right at the end of it, he just leaves right at the battle, and is kind of like a nod to the point of these tie-ins. They don't really do much, and he just left right at the end of it, right when everything was supposed to happen. And it's like, you'll find out in, the main arc, pretty much. I thought that was a pretty fun nod, but I think that sums up what this event has done, really. It's just been a fun getaway as all of these tie-ins in the main series comes out. And, a lot of Thor, a lot of different Thors, but it pays off for fans of Jason Aaron who have followed along like John for so long. And I can appreciate that, even though if I'm not one of them yet, I still plan on going back and catching up just because it has become so iconic now. But this event seems to be the culmination of his run and all of his work, and it was a lot of fun. It was nice to jump in it and follow along, but I didn't get what John got out of it because I hadn't followed along for so long. It was just kind of something fun that I didn't really look forward to. It was just there to read, and I didn't hate it. But
I will say, to answer Matt's question, as for tie-ins that actually do matter for canon for Jason Aaron's Thor, it's just the main series, all 3 Strike Force one-shots, and the Asgardians of the Galaxy tie-ins, which are weirdly vital to wrapping up a couple loose ends from Original Sin. What was it? Thor and Loki, the 10th Realm. It just wraps up some loose threads. Also deals with the death of Valkyrie, which is obviously a long-running Thor character. I guess the Thor issues are kind of vaguely important, but I hated them. The first 2 anyway. The third one was better. But
it's fine. It's just more young Thor who's very insufferable.
Yeah, but at least
Jason Aaron ran out of things to say about him a long time ago, so it was kind of nice to see him finally pick that damn hammer up so he can shut up about it and just go get drunk.
But like, to that point, this whole series is so steeped in that lore. I think there's so much defined like that you can enjoy if you've been following along. But it might be the fault of the series that it didn't appeal to people who haven't followed for so long. It seems like it casually made an attempt to make sure everybody keeps up and follows along, but like John said, about halfway through, it just wasn't concerned, and if you can keep up, you can, and if not, try to have fun. But other than that, it was fun. Like I said, it was badass to watch Thor do everything he's doing, and to watch him become All-Father like that. A lot of cool moments and a lot of epic shit, and definitely worth checking out, even if you haven't done Aaron's Thor. But you should probably do Aaron's Thor. Cody, if you want to take it.
Yeah, sure. So, as predictable, like, I thought this was fine. It was a Jason Aaron book, unmistakably. I thought at the end, and full disclaimer, like, I'm probably never going to go back and read Aaron's Thor. I just don't care that much. I thought that by the end, it was a lot lower stakes than I expected. Like, I get that the stakes were high for Thor. The stakes for the Marvel Extended Universe that was all drug into this event were nil. Like,
it was pretty up in issue 5, though.
What's
like
that?
They were winning the war by the end of issue 5.
Yeah,
this issue was set up to be just Thor.
Yeah,
Because
but
Thor's
I mean,
time in this event.
but for a wide sweeping crossover event, like you walk away from it and Thor is the only book that is impacted. Nobody else had any lasting impact whatsoever. Nothing happened to Cap, nothing happened to She-Hulk, and you never felt along the way that it could.
I think something
just
might happen to Captain Marvel. At the end of her last tie-in, she left like a bloody rag she had coughed into. That might have happened during the war.
Maybe. I don't know. Just the whole thing felt really low stakes. It felt like a Jason Aaron vanity project to me. And I mean, that's fine. Do what you want to do. I expected something like kill Black Goliath. Like, you know what I mean? Like something to happen. And at the end of it, it was like, a bunch of Thor shit happened in the Thor book. So I mean, I guess it makes sense, but don't market it as a summer blockbuster crossover if it really isn't going to be. That's a Thor character.
That's exciting for me.
And a Defender's character.
That's your problem. You didn't like it. That's what I'm just going to say to everybody from now on. That's your problem, all right?
And as Matt pointed out, like I can't stand the way Aaron writes dialogue. I just cannot stand it. And I'm never going to get over that. I mean, it's been 10 years of reading Aaron dialogue and being like, God damn it, nobody talks like that. So, I mean, at this point, it just is what it is. That's how he writes dialogue. It's fine. Whatever. The art was mostly good. Stronger than the writing, I thought. And fuck all those tie-ins. Like, every tie-in I read, I was like, damn, I'm sorry I read this, except for the Punisher ones. Like, even the ones that started out okay. What's that?
The Punisher ones were weirdly great.
Yeah, they were weirdly... Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like to see Frank leading an army? Like, that's the dream, right?
That was your buddy Duggan, too.
What's that?
That was your buddy Duggan, too.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, I had no problem with it. It didn't feel like his typical fare. It was good. It was fine. The event was fine. Did we cover any of the other books yet, or are we still on War of the Realms an hour?
No,
we were on War of the Realms. I have a raging headache, so I'm actually going to duck out when War of the Realms is done because I didn't read the other books. Anyway.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're like an hour into this thing.
We've gone on 30 minutes for War of the Realms now.
So yeah, I'm done. I mean, that's all I have. I read it. I'm not sorry that I read the core series, but I'm never gonna do it again.
Fair enough. John Jack, signing off.
I'm gonna cut out, fellas.
All right.
I have just the worst headache.
All right, bud. Feel better, man.
Get to feeling better, dude. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
And then there were 3. So for our second book this week, we're going to talk about Hellboy and the BPRD, The Beast of Vargu. It is written by Mike Mignola, of course, with art by Duncan Fegredo. This is, if you've read a Hellboy one-shot before, the setup is pretty familiar. It's set in Hellboy's younger years when he's still working with the BPRD. He's summoned to Romania where a monster is killing people, and he fights the monster and then discovers a folkloric connection to it that we are told about for several pages, which is actually kind of cool. And then the monster gets defeated. Nick, what did you think about this one?
I think that formula you explained, it's not unlike what we just experienced with the Jason Aaron stuff. If you're a fan of Jason Aaron's run, you're going to love Thor. If you're a fan of Hellboy and what Mignola has done so far, you're probably going to like this one. It follows in that formula of introducing the world of Hellboy and the BPRD and then does the classic folklore spin on it. And to be honest, this one, I actually finished reading it and immediately went back and read it again because I wasn't 100% sure if I picked up on everything. That there's a swap in the narrative that happens with these. I guess she's a gypsy traveler or something like that finds Hellboy after the initial fight, and once that shift happens, I didn't quite follow as she was retelling the story. That was the transition of time that happened, and he was able to go back and free the soul of the mother and all of that. But I didn't get that the first reading, like, at all. I put it down and I thought, what just happened? It just immediately opened it back up. But that's kind of something cool about Mignola's work is I've gone back 3, 4, even more times on some of his work, and you always find cool things that he slips in. And if you know the folklore that it comes from, you'll probably discover even more. He's kind of got almost a rabbit hole of lore that he references and brings into his world. And this issue is more along those lines, that he uses that to his strength, and it's kind of just him in his niche doing what he does best. I thought this issue was really cool as a one-shot, and it's something that I know obviously I'd read again, but I'm a Hellboy fan. I like this formula. I like what he does. Artwork's amazing, and honestly, the Dave Stewart just as colors, is there anybody more iconic than this man? I love everything that he does almost, and what he's brought to Hellboy is just amazing. It's immediately recognizable, and I can't imagine a Hellboy title without him now. It's good stuff. But as far as this being a one-shot, it's worth reading, even if you're not a fan of Hellboy, or if you don't have a lot of experience with him. You can jump into this and just pick it up as a good comic book, enjoy it, set it down, and, take something away from it. But outside of that, it doesn't really offer anything to the mythology or to Hellboy as a character. It's not really weighty in its consequences or anything like that. One shot, you pick it up, read it, enjoy it, you're pretty much done with it. And I'm okay with that. It was a fun time. Cody, you want to take it? Cody? No sound.
Okay, I will go. Something's going on with Cody's end on the technical side of it. If you couldn't tell from the lack of enthusiasm I gave in my in opening description, I wasn't huge on this comic. It kind of falls into the same rut. No, let me rephrase it. It definitely falls into the same rut that I feel a lot of Hellboy stories have in recent years, where it's just set up, fights monster, folklore, beats monster. And I mean, if you want to dive in like Nick did and really go for broke with a lot of the finer details on it, cool. It didn't appeal to me. I think more or less I tend to be a bigger fan of Hellboy in theory more than in practice. I've got probably 50 Hellboy comics in my collection, and the first omnibus, but for one reason or another, I can't get past just liking the stories. And I don't know if it's something in Mignola's art or writing or what, but I kind of feel like if you like Hellboy, you'll probably get into this. If you don't like Hellboy, I don't think this is going to do anything to sell you on it. So, that's kind of my litmus there. Cody, do you have any thoughts on Hellboy, the Beast of Vargu?
I actually didn't. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I actually didn't read this one. I skimmed through it a little bit, but I don't know. Like, there was something about everything surrounding this book that told me this just isn't going to be as good as you want it to be. The visuals are beautiful. Like, Mignola is still a fantastic artist. Like Nick said, Dave Stewart is an amazing colorist. He was the Comic Watch Colorist of the Year for 2018. 2018. So, I mean, and for good reason. Like, he absolutely... it's my internet is the problem, I've come to realize. Yeah, so I mean, I skipped it. And I'm not sorry. I am sorry that I was late. I was cooking and just completely lost track of time. Like, had my phone, it didn't buzz once. Skype didn't try to call me. None of that happened. And I was just happy in my kitchen doing my thing and looked up at the clock and I was like, oh, man.
You bastard. How dare you feed your kid? Yeah, actually, I think you hit the nail on the head for me. Not as good as you want it to be could probably summarize my feel towards Hellboy comics every time. So yeah,
I've felt that way for a while, like pretty much since I want to say the third or fourth like major mini was about the breaking point for me, and after that it was like, okay, well, this is just more of the same. Every once in a while something will come along and they'll be like, hey, this is really great, and then more of the same, formulaic. Like it just, I never bonded with the character like I feel like I was supposed to.
precisely.
And now, you know, 30
Yeah.
years into reading, just that bond's not there.
I think Mignola uses we want to attach onto Hellboy and use him as a lead character to explore this world, but a lot of times it can seem like Mignola's Hellboy stories are only as good as the folklore that he's based them on, because Hellboy is used as a catalyst to explore these stories. So a lot of times it can become bigger than him, and then he'll find a way to inject Hellboy and the mythology into it. So some of these stories are so vague and kind of, I don't want to use the word outdated, but not relevant to culture now. And the way he twists that and contorts it into a Hellboy story and injects that into it, it it just loses its appeal. And it can be hard if you're not invested into the grand mythology of what Hellboy is doing and the overall story. These stories probably don't do a lot um, plot wise or development wise. It's just not, it probably doesn't bring it as much, but when you're invested into it and you see how the different folklore plays into one mythology and what he's using to build those pieces and how it influences Hellboy as a character, this development takes place on a larger scale. And at this point, he's got the franchise so in the bag that it seems like he's just having fun with it. And these stories feel like it's just him playing in this world that he's created and using folklore that he may not have used 10, 15 years ago that got shelved for one reason or another, and now he can just pull it out and revisit it in a one shot. And Dark Horse is just kind of letting him do this at will. We had recently talked about how this was a break in the continuation from his yearly cycle. This one is just, it's not part of the 55 or 56 or anything like that. It's just set totally off. It kind of came out of nowhere, and just more indication that Mignola's having fun with this stuff. And I can kind of tell, and I'm digging it. But I can definitely see, I'm almost in John's situation now where he was in Thor. If you're not following along with it, like, what is this doing, you know?
Well, okay. I think that's probably about our final thoughts on Hellboy, unless you guys have anything more to add.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hellboy, he's not going anywhere. All right, so for our last book, we have Martian Manhunter number 6. This is written by Steve Orlando, art by Riley Rossmo, with coloring by Ivan Placencia. I hope I said that right, because I kept saying placenta for a very long time by mistake. So this issue kind of brings. There have been 2 arcs running concurrently through this series. One is the flashback to when John Jones was, much to our surprise, a corrupt cop on Mars, right as the thought plague called Hronmir's Curse is very quietly swept under the rug by the authorities and ignored, but it is killing people. And 6 is the end point of that, where his family is killed, the population of Mars is devastated, and John is left alone. The other plot line, which is not so neatly wrapped up at this point, is him posing as a dead cop on Earth and investigating a kidnapping, or rather a rash of kidnappings, that can be attributed to, dun dun dun, another survivor from Mars who is evil. I kind of threw this issue out there because I've been enjoying the shit out of this miniseries. I've been waiting for, and I know it's not for everyone, and I always say that, and I'm always gonna say that. It's okay. I've been waiting for a project from Steve Orlando to come along that lived up to the hype that was surrounding his name for a while, because I read several things by him, including most of his Justice League of America run, and he just wasn't clicking. And I was like, all right, well, I'll give him one last try. And just for whatever reason, the chemistry between him and Riley Rossmo to create this inventive and imaginative, utterly lived in world and society on Mars, it just drew me in right away. I mean, it helps that I like Riley Rossmo. I wouldn't like him on a mainstream book. If he was on Justice League, I would say, no, this is awful. Oh, wait, he did draw an issue of Justice League No Justice, and it was awful. But put him on he's one of those guys like Chris Bacalo. He needs to be on the right project in order for his style to work, and this is absolutely it. The art is by turns ugly and garish and cartoony, but also just weirdly inventive like the best of Chris Bacalo, to keep going back to my example, where you just really want to look at it and study the details and like, what the hell was he on when he drew this? This is insane. But the issue itself, in terms of delivery, was pretty spot on. And most of the issue here is the flashback sequence of the death of his family and the utter devastation of Mars. It's heartbreaking. We watched John Jones watch his family die. That's pretty tough. I mean, it's he's holding his daughter and his wife, and it's right as she finds out that he had been a corrupt cop in order to afford them the lifestyle that he thought they deserved, and she feels that betrayal. And he's dealing with that as he's watching them die. It's brutal. It's heart-wrenching. And I think this is a great midpoint for the series. I guess now the flashback will probably deal with how he wound up on Earth, and then everything comes together in a neat, clean little bow here in another 6 issues. But very fun, very unique series. If you want something very different than your typical superhero fare, this is something I recommend checking out. Cody, what'd you think?
Yeah. I like Steve Orlando as a person. I think Steve Orlando is by all accounts, a pretty cool guy. I know some people that know him personally that, have nothing but great things to say about him. I am also waiting for that project from him that I read, and I'm still waiting. Like, I can see the appeal, like the care that he put into crafting that heartbreaking sequence. Like, I can see the appeal of that, except for, to me, this is a wholly unnecessary story. Like, we've had John Jones for 50 years, 60 years. 60 years. There's a reason this story of him being a corrupt cop on Mars hasn't been told. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of new Martians and new Kryptonians popping up all the time. Like, that completely defeats the purpose. Just everywhere, every time you turn around, there's white Martians, there's green Martians, there's surviving green Martians, there's white Martians pretending to be green Martians. Like, get a new shtick. That's... I don't know. Man, I hate the idea of him as a corrupt cop. I mean, for how many decades has he been like the moral heart of the Justice League? Like, he's always right there in the heart of the morality of everything they do. And now we take him back to his base roots and he's just another corrupt cop. Like, that just seems disingenuous to me. I actually am appreciating the art of Rossmo on this. I think that it's a good fit for the book. I just think the book doesn't need to exist. And that's my biggest problem. Like, every time I pick it up, and I've read all 6 issues as they've come out, and every month I'm like, damn, did it again. 8 more to go, 7 more to go, 6 more to go, and I don't want it.
Oh, I think if I can throw something in there.
Please.
I feel like, and I was utterly opposed to the idea of him being a corrupt cop too. Don't get me wrong, because yeah, he's John fucking Jones. He's the moral sinner. But I think the way that they do it, and the fact that he was doing it as a justification for trying to better his family's life, makes for a penance situation post Mars, and it to me anyway, as a reader. I think it adds a new dimension to the character. You know, a common complaint against Martian Manhunter, particularly vis-a-vis his story or backstory, is how is he different from Superman, really? You know? I've heard that a lot. And I've kind of struggled to answer that question, but I think this series at least points us and gives us some answer as to how his backstory differs from the Man of Steel's, and it's because he's having to right wrongs and serve penance as the last survivor of his race. And that's not something that's not a guilt that Superman has ever had to deal with. So on top of survivor's guilt, there's also that aspect of it. I'm sorry, I took away from what you were saying. Go on.
No, that's totally fine. Like I get that. I mean, if we're gonna get into the business of trying to differentiate superheroes from Superman, like that's a quite lucrative business. Like this is, the archetype versus everything that came out of the archetype. So I mean, it's fine. Like I'm just not into it. Like I'm just not into it. And I wanted to be real bad because I love John Jones. But I do not love this book. I would probably not recommend this book to anybody who's a fan of classic Justice League. You know, like the Giffen era.
I could actually back that.
Yeah, like I don't know. The Giffen era, even the Johns era, like it just doesn't seem to fit with anything that has happened in the last 40 years of Justice League comics. So, I mean, there's that. Like it's Tom King syndrome for me. Really, it's the same kind of thing. Like, well, a bunch of people did stuff before me, and now I'm going to take it in a whole different direction. I mean, I guess do that. I did read Batman Damned 3 times today, trying to write the review for number 3, and here's a character taken on a completely different path by a different writer. Somebody new to the character mostly. I don't know. And I felt like that was such a much better execution outside of continuity in a different format. 12 issues to this? Really? Holy smokes. All right. But like I said, Steve Orlando's a cool guy. Rossmo's art is fine for this book. Not for most books, but for this book, Yeah, that's my take, Nick. Save me from myself. I feel so negative today, but I didn't like anything that we read this week.
So I'll try to address those points. As far as the necessity of the story, and this is his first origin post-Rebirth. I think Rebirth was, 2016? So it's been a few years, and Scott Snyder kind of brought him back into the Justice League title, and that transition happened where it was Cyborg for a little while, and now it's back to Martian Manhunter. It seems like they're trying to establish an importance around Martian Manhunter, that he's part of this team again, and they're really making that happen. I think that's where the importance of the story is coming from. But I get that. 12 issues might be a lot for this, but the creative team is just so on point. I think there's such a chemistry between them that I'm okay with it. The scene that Matt was talking about at the end, where he's watching his mother die and the kid, actually made me tear up. I binged issues 2 through 6 right before the show, so I got a long session sitting with it, and they really built up to it pretty well. And issue 6 felt like a culmination of that, and super emotional moment. I didn't expect it to land so hard, really. But as far as you said, I think you mentioned about how Martian Manhunter was the heart of the Justice League team, and it always kind of comes back to that. and him being a corrupt cop sort of deceives that history of emotional contribution to the team. But his heart was very much tied up in his family, which could arguably be the transition that happened post Mars. Is now it's the Justice League and what he's looking out for and where his heart actually lies. And I think that's what differentiates him, like Matt was getting at, from Superman, and that Superman has that caring for Earth, which is what I talked about with Frank Miller's Year One. He's transcended nationalism, and he's thinking on a grand Earth scale. And Martian Manhunter is always, at least in my opinion, seemed focused on the team and those around him and getting them safe and keeping them, from harm. Not unlike what he did with his family. He doesn't have that tie to the other Martians. And this series, he doesn't really have that much of a tie to other humans other than the ones who have been around him and that he's come to care about. I think that's a trait that they're really building on in Martian Manhunter, and that him finding his humanity or what he can offer in the sense of heart to this team. But back to the series itself, it is his first origin story post-Rebirth, so I expected that. I was coming into it well aware of what it was, so I don't really have those complaints. The art, I was unsure about at first, but I've ultimately come to the realization that this needs to be a Black Label series. Most of my complaints come from the fact that it wants to take us to these places like the sex scene between him and his wife, the breeding scene, some of the violence that they do. There's a lot of places that it wants to go to that feels like it should have been a black series or Black Label series. It should have been the 17 plus crowd. That they weren't necessarily restricted, but they had an inability to go to the really dark spots that they could have gone with this story that, excuse me, I think would have helped the emotional context of it. And I think it would have succeeded a lot more if it could really explore those consequences and those aspects of John Jones' life, because he's been put through the fucking ringer in this story. And that's kind of where it's been such a success, really, is he's going to come out of this as the hero. And issue 6, I think Orlando said, was like his absolute low point. Like, this is his worst day of his life. This is the turning point for him. And it was low. And I think had they had the creative freedom to go a darker, more adult route, this series would have been more appealing, maybe to me, maybe to Cody. It maybe would have been able to do more with the story at hand. But I really just wanted to see this art on an adult level. He wanted to get there, and it seemed like he just had to do something that was okay for DC at that point. And it switched to that. It is what it is. I think it's not enough to harm the series, but it's enough to where it got noticeable, especially when he's watching his family die after the kid accidentally went into the thought stream because it was looking for safety from the curse, and the mother went in to find it. There's some really traumatic stuff there that's happening that they kind of gloss over, but I get that they show it happening, but they're not really going that much into it. They focus in a lot on Martian Manhunter. It seems like a movie that you watch that wants to be rated R but got edited back to PG-13, so they got to cut away from that. It had a lot of those moments, and I thought that's where it kind of went down the most for me. But all in all, they're few and far between. I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm a fan of Martian Manhunter, and this is a totally new take on it that's not for fans of the classic aesthetic or maybe even personality or behavior. It's a new take on it for sure, but to me it falls in line with what we see in Justice League and this character that we see post-Rebirth, which has been what DC is trying to do. They're trying to create some sort of cohesive universe out of all of this. Maybe the art that they chose wasn't the best for that direction specifically, and that's why I think it should have been a Black Label, but I've made that point. I think overall it was worth checking out. Like, it's very new reader friendly. You can pick it up and just dive in and enjoy all of it. There's not years of history that you need to know about the character. It really just puts it all out there. And to me, this is one that you'll find people wanting to go back and read 5-10 years from now because it's so distinct. And I think there'll still be people talking about, like Cody, where it didn't do it for them, and then you'll have other people who loved it who thinks it's, almost a revolutionary take on the character and something that needs to be extended on. I've seen people wanting it to be turned into an ongoing, and I can see it. May not have the sales for that, but it should. This is a book that should have those types of sales. This is one that people should really be talking about because it brings something new to the medium, and that's cool shit. But that's pretty much my thoughts on it.
Anytime you can stand out amongst the crowd, that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, I think Nick, you better said what I was trying to say than I did. So with that, that's it for our reviews for the week. Let's talk about what we've read and what we're looking forward to. Nick, you want to lead off?
Sure. I guess in a bit of continuity from last episode, was recommended that after I read Jeff Johns' Shazam run, I should dive into the JSA run. And 2 days later, I'm at the comic store, and they have issues 1 through 87 of Jeff Johns' JSA run. So I pick up the box and carry it home, and I'm about halfway through it now. It's so good. I'm a fan of Jeff Johns, but man, this is really good superhero work. Outside of his Green Lantern run and Shazam and stuff, this is core fundamental superhero storytelling that I just love. The first arc with Extant that had, it was actually Hawk after Dove had passed, and they bring her back. It was good. It set the foundation for the team and everything. But moving into the return of Hawkman, oh my gosh, it's just too good. And I'm definitely excited now. Scott Snyder teased the JSA, so I guess that can be what I'm looking forward to, because he already said he was a fan of Jeff Johns' run. Excuse me. And if he's going to do anything like what I'm reading now on Jeff Johns' JSA, I'm super excited for what he can bring to the table. But that's kind of taken up most of my reading. I said 87 issues is kind of a lot to get through. I'm about halfway through it now, and just well worth the read, well worth the buy. I've got a short box full of JSA now, but I'm so happy I did. It's really cool shit. Cody?
Yeah, so what did I read this past week? Obviously, as I said earlier, I spent a lot of time today with Batman Damned #3, the finale of that series, and you can read my review that was painful and hard to write. Not because it was a bad book by any stretch. It was a fantastic end to this series, but it's very much so open to interpretation. So, I mean, it's a heady book. I think it's going to be a book that, you pull out once a year and you read it and you get something completely different out of it, depending on where you are in your life, what you have learned, what you have experienced. Like, I think that will change drastically from year to year. So, I mean, there was that, and I can't think about anything else today. Like, everything else has been shut down. I've been trying to watch Jessica Jones season 3. I'm about ready to quit on that project. I find all the characters so unlikable. I used to like Jessica, but she's been unlikable this season, and Patsy is just the worst. I mean, just the worst. She says you're welcome one more time, I'm done with the show. Like, you smug, arrogant piece of crap. And that's dominantly, like, I've been listening to a lot of records this week. So, because just sitting, reading comics, like reading the new books and listening to records and cooking and doing those kind of things. So it's been kind of a relaxing week for me. I needed a little bit of unwinding. I've been a little high strung lately. For what I'm looking forward to, I guess there's not a ton that I'm really excited about next week, but DC's #3 comes out. Yeah, I'm interested to see what direction that goes in. And also, I'm interested to see who Matt Rosenberg kills in Uncanny 21, because he's on just a murder spree right now, and I mean he's almost out of options. So, maybe he'll kill Scott. I don't know.
We're killing Cyclops again.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right?
Wah, wah.
Maybe we could kill Emma. That'd be cool. I'd be okay with killing Emma. Yeah, I know there's so many people out there that are just losing their minds at just the thought of that. So, I mean, yeah, that would be entertaining, at least on the message boards. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the death of Emma Frost next week.
And Mystique.
Yeah,
because why not?
Right.
So, I haven't had a ton of time to read this week, but I have been checking out Krypton on Sci-Fi Channel. I was originally intrigued just because I started seeing commercials for it, and I was like, holy shit, the production values on this are awesome. Hey, that's a Doomsday that actually looks like Doomsday. Oh my god, that looks like Lobo. What the damn hell? Well, okay, I'll check it out. And considering I'm jumping into the second season without knowing, really who any of the characters are, or the circumstance, other than the obvious ones like Zod. But I gotta say, it's hooked me pretty quick in 2 episodes. Whoever did the makeup for Brainiac is awesome. Brainiac, that is what Brainiac should fucking look like. And if this was up on the big screen, I don't think it would look any different. Like, that's the level of care in the makeup and just the set design on this show. It is a true labor of love. My original response to it when the show was announced last year is, what's the point? But, and there's a few things that bug me. Like, I don't like the fact that their Adam Strange acts like early years Booster Gold. That just bugs me. And there's some time travel shenanigans going on right now that I haven't quite ironed out yet, but I'm sure if I just bothered to watch season 1, or rather had time to watch season 1, I would probably be in the know on that. But it's worth checking out. As for what I'm looking forward to connect the dots back to our show last week, Walking Dead 193 comes out. It's our first full issue in a world without Rick Grimes, and I'm really eager to see where we go from here. So, hell yeah. Kirkman, Adler, let's do this. But that is it for us this week.
Wait. I saved one that I was excited for that I didn't say because it's your book. Lois Lane #1 comes out next week.
Damn right.
And that is going to be a dope series. Like,
yeah.
I love everything.
Greg Rucka writing Lois Lane. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait for that one.
The new Doom Patrol comes out from Gerard Way. I believe it's next week as well.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Street magician!
Yes, I'm so ready for the Young Animal imprint to come back. And slowly we'll get that Green Lantern title that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that one sounds really interesting. But that's not till like November or something, right?
Yeah, we'll start with Doom Patrol, so I'm ready.
Oh. Well, can't go wrong with a good Doom Patrol.
Oh.
So, I guess that's it. We are the Comic Watchers. You can check us out on wherever finer podcasts can be found, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, etc., etc., etc. And you can also check us out on comic-watch.com, Twitter, Facebook, and for all your comic news, reviews, and media needs. I'm Matt.
I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Cody.
Bye!
Bye!